When people think of sugar-free desserts, often people think might lack flavor or have some kind of sugar substitute in it, and it's probably for someone who wants to be health conscious, or perhaps someone who wants to trim their waist. Honestly, who doesn't? For us, baking sugar-free desserts is actually a lifestyle. On our homestead, we do not eat very much sugar. Actually, personally, I don't eat any kind of sugar, but most of my family doesn't eat any sugar at all or very little, and that is just because we do not feel well when we eat it. So instead of adding processed sugars into our baked goods that mess up our blood sugar and make us feel sick, we add in more natural ingredients. We sweeten our baked goods with things like fruit juice, and sometimes we use low glycemic index sweeteners such as agave and fructose. So during the fall, or really any time of the year because we love apples, we make up an apple crisp or sometimes an apple pie too. They're very similar recipes. And we like to sweeten it with only fruit and 100% apple juice concentrate. So there's no added sugar and not even a natural sweetener like agave or honey in there. This recipe also has, oats, some good flours for you. If you like to grind your own grain and make your own flour, you can add that into this recipe. We have real butter, oats, and plenty of warm spices. I absolutely love cinnamon and nutmeg and clove. So this dessert is right up my alley. So why don't you come along and I will show you how to make this sugarless apple crisp. For the filling, you will need about 5 to 6 apples. They will need to be peeled and sliced thin. I prefer to use my apple peeler cord, which I believe I got from Amazon. I highly recommend it. It makes cutting up your apples for pies and crisp and even dehydrating so much easier and quicker than if you had to do it by hand. So let's get started, and I'm going to start cutting up these apples. Once the apples have been peeled, I'm just going to cut off any remaining skin that the little contraption missed. And I'm going to cut the apples in half and just toss them into a bowl. Next, I'm going to measure out the apple juice concentrate. And it'll be about 8 ounces of the juice, and I'm going to add that into a pot along with about a half a teaspoon of cinnamon and 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. And make sure that you add the cornstarch in with the cold juice, otherwise it will not mix properly. Cornstarch isn't always the friendliest when it is added into something hot. If there's some clumps in your filling right now, don't worry, they will mix in as it heats up. And you'll want to heat this over, I'd say about medium, low heat, nothing too quick. And you want to heat it until it begins to thicken up and almost has a gelled, sort of jelly-like consistency. You want it to be nice and thick so that it will coat all of the apples for the crisp. Now that it's been brought to a boil, you can see that it's beginning to thicken up and have a nice gelled consistency. So I usually let it cook for a minute, get a little bit thicker, and then take it off the heat so I can pour it onto the apples. It also changes color a little bit. It becomes a lot more glossy and shiny and almost has a transparent look to it once it thickens up. Now I'm just going to pour this right over top of the apples and make sure that they are thoroughly covered. Oops. Now I'm just going to pour this into my 8x8 baking dish. I don't know about you guys, but cinnamon types of desserts or any kind of warm spice dessert is like my favorite. So right now, smelling all of these warm spices and the sweetness of the apple just makes the kitchen just smell heavenly. Okay, now that the apples have been added to the dish, I need to make the crisp topping. So what I'm going to need is a half a cup of whole wheat flour, or if you grind your own grains, then this can be in a half a cup of freshly ground flour. A half a cup of all-purpose flour. Whoa. A half a cup of quick cooking oats. And then you'll need a half teaspoon of cinnamon, about a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg, and you can vary these spices. If you like a little bit more cinnamon, sometimes I add in a whole teaspoon into it instead of a half. You can adjust these to your liking. And then just a pinch of clove, especially because clove is a little bit strong, but very tasty. And then a pinch of salt. And you'll just want to mix up these dry ingredients. And once they are combined, then we can drizzle on, this is half a stick of butter, so about 4 tablespoons. It's melted, so I'm just going to go ahead and drizzle it onto our dry ingredients. And then mix it up until it's going to combine, but it's going to create a bunch of kind of chunks, and those are chunks of flavor. So just mix it until most of it's kind of wet, some of it's a little bit dry, and then you see you have these little chunks of flavor and butter and spice. So once that is all mixed up, I'm just going to wipe off my spatula because the topping is my favorite part, so I don't want to lose any of that. And then I will just sprinkle it onto the crisp. It might look like a lot at first for just a little dish, but trust me, it is just the right amount. You certainly do not want to skimp on the crisp topping. Alright, now that has been done, everything is ready to go into the oven. And this will bake at, I think, 400 degrees for about 30 minutes until it's golden brown, and around the edges you are going to see some bubbling. A few tips that I have learned throughout the years of baking sugarless desserts are, especially ones with apples, are to use an apple peeler. It makes the process so much quicker and simpler. And also to select apples that are sweet. Skip things that are tart like a Granny Smith. Instead, select a sweet apple because it will add a lot more depth and flavor and sweetness to your dish. So things like a Golden Delicious, Fuji, or Gala apples. Those are all really good choices, and they would be excellent for this apple crisp recipe. Alright, well, thank you for stopping by the homestead. I hope that you have a great week, friends.